Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1348. Preparation for the Ritual. Blue Mountain Island, within a primitive forest. Worried that official Beyonders would discover the ritual outside the city, Verdu Abraham, who had finished making preparations, used the sealed artifact to teleport away from Byam and arrived in some place that was nearly uninhabited. Rubbing the pain in his ribs, Verdu took off his classic robe and placed it aside. Following that, he set up an altar, lit the candles, and burnt the correct essential oils, extracts, herbal powder, etc. After finishing the setup, Verdu took 2 steps back and lowered his voice to chant in ancient Hermes. The great god of war, the symbol of iron and blood, the ruler of chaos and strife. A howling wind echoed in the dark forest. Amidst the rustling of the branches and leaves, 2 of the candles on the altar suddenly emitted crackling sounds. The corresponding candle flames rose from the size of a sapling to a towering tree. At the same time, the color of the candlelight changed from orange to bright white. The wind that passed through the forest became even more intense. 2 fiery pillars of fire intertwined together, twisting into a blurry and huge figure. At that moment, Verdu Abraham felt an indescribable gaze cast from high above and onto his body. He hurriedly bowed his head and said, "Great God of war, your lowly believer would like to pray for your help." As he spoke, he kept adjusting his attitude and tried his best to remain calm. He knew from his family's books that the most important thing to take note of when praying to the God of war was to not be angry. The massive figure formed from a blinding white flame constantly spewed out flames as it used a language that Verdu could understand, but had no idea what it was. "Lowly mortal, a god is not used to satisfy your wishes. Speak, say your prayers, and I'll decide whether to help you in the end." Verdu had already drafted out his request, so he said after some thought, "Great God of war, what should I do to make my ancestor, Mr. Dor Bethel Abraham, return to the real world?" "A ritual. Sacrifice a bizarro sorcerer, a secret sorcerer, and a parasite. You should already know about it," the flaming giant said in a deep and dignified manner. "It's the same as the answer given by Dorian's student." Verdu sighed and said, "Great God of war, what must I pay to request you to complete this ritual for me?" The flaming giant looked down at the astrologer and said, "The corresponding price is not something you can afford. Your pale and puny soul isn't even qualified to be embers." Just as Verdu was disappointed and abnormally depressed, the flaming giant continued, "But Mr. Dor can. Besides, I'm in a good mood today. Sacrifice a portion of your blood to me as the mark of the contract. I will request the corresponding price from Mr. Dor." "That's possible?" Verdu subconsciously had his suspicions, but after some thought, he felt that there was nothing wrong with it. Indeed, only his ancestor, Bethel Abraham, had the right to trade with a secret existence like the god of war. As for whether Mr. Dor was willing to proceed with the deal, Verdu had never considered it. From his point of view, anyone who was in an exiled and sealed state would undoubtedly want to escape, even if they had to pay a huge price. "Yes, great God of war." After pondering for a moment, Verdu agreed. He then changed the ritual and added the sacrifice and bestowment parts of a ritual. He then used a metal dagger to pierce through his arm and let out dark red blood. When his blood turned into red pearls and passed through the door of sacrifice and bestowment, it became extremely dark, as though there were countless monsters lurking in it. In the next second, an object was spat out from behind the illusory door. It was a semi-transparent meat blob with slippery tentacles. On the meat blob, twisted maggots crawled out one after another. Upon seeing the object, Verdu's head turned dizzy as though large amounts of gunk had been injected into it. At this moment, a flame landed, enveloping his body, turning his vision red. With this layer of red light, Verdu no longer suffered any anomalies when looking at the blob of meat. Right on the heels of that, another object was spat out of the door of sacrifice and bestowment. It was a bird with a deformed head. Every feather shimmered with a faint stellar radiance. Strands of insect-like brilliance drilled into its body and occasionally emanated out. Worm of stars. Is this a monster with a secret sorcerer's beyonder characteristic? The previous one corresponds to a bizarro sorcerer. Indeed, secret sorcerer and bizarro sorcerer are only names of potions. They aren't just referring to humans. It's the same with the title of demigods. Unless the term half-man is added to the title. Verdun has a deep understanding of his pathway, allowing him to understand the current situation. And this meant that the ritual to help Mr. Dor escape could be done by sacrificing demigod monsters of the seer, apprentice, and marauder pathways. Furthermore, there was no need for Verdun to do it himself. The great god of war had already prepared everything. This made it difficult for Verdun to suppress the joy in his heart. He looked at the door of sacrifice and bestowment light with great anticipation, waiting for the third sacrifice to be spat out. In just a second, an object flew out from the darkness behind the door and landed on the altar. It was an unconscious crow. Of course, it only looked like a crow. Its right eye had a ring of black, and its feathers were almost transparent. On it were rings. A monster corresponding to Parasite. Verdun was delighted as he sincerely praised the great god of war. Inside the corpse cathedral. You only have godhood left? Klein asked in a low voice as he looked at the huge cross in front of him. He felt that using a certain identity, or a particular persona to revive definitely had problems. Even if the identity, the persona, had a real body, real beyonder characteristics, and a certain level of self-awareness, it still wouldn't be nearly perfect. And Adam's behavior had deepened his suspicions. Sitting beside him, Adam, who was dressed in a simple white robe, didn't show any change in expression. He maintained his composure when preaching. Yes. I'll only be complete if I fuse with true. Indeed. Klein sighed and said, although the true creator is an embodiment of negative personalities and extreme emotions, he has also inherited your humanity. That's why he went mad. Adam appeared to be speaking about a stranger. Klein thought for a moment before interpreting the remaining contents of the second blasphemy slate. He asked, if the two of you really fuse as one, who among you will take center stage? This is what we have been competing for after we awakened, Adam said as he released the hand holding the silver cross pendant. Therefore, you obtained the first blasphemy slate through Aman, hoping to use it to gain control of the Chaos Sea and gain the upper hand? Klein was enlightened as he nodded with a frown. All of you seem to have a tacit understanding regarding this matter. The true creator has never made an issue out of your identity, or used external forces to deal with you. This is between us, Adam replied calmly. Klein fell silent for a few seconds before staring at the blasphemy slate. I have a nagging feeling that the Red Angel's death and many of the things that happened during the fourth epoch weren't that simple. Klein kept asking and probing. Apart from trying to understand more secrets and gain more knowledge, he was stalling for time and maintaining their present interaction. Compared to being hypnotized by Adam and turning muddle-headed, or sleeping directly, he wished to stay awake. With this in mind, Klein lowered his head to look at the blood-stained wooden stake embedded in his chest. He felt that the pain it brought was so real. Why do you say that? Adam asked in return, as if he would begin praying at any moment. Klein deliberated over his words and said, before the Black Emperor returned, the Solomon Empire only had one true god, the true creator, and the Red Priest's uniqueness. The nobles and powers who supported Alistitutor occupied the four uniquenesses of Visionary, Door, Error, the Fool. Together, even adding on the King of Angels Ouroboros, they wouldn't be able to fend off the 6 orthodox deities like Evernight and company. Furthermore, they still had the Justiciar uniqueness on hand. In such a situation, even if you didn't plan on scheming to target the Red Angel, no one will suspect you. Of course, a crazy blood emperor might be more useful to you. Adam's gaze remained unchanged as he stared at the huge cross. You don't understand because you don't know enough. In the fourth epoch, apart from the 3 great empires and the true deities and kings of angels behind them, there were also the Demonist sect and the Moses ascetic order. There was also the Abyss's infiltration and secretly developed artisans, as well as the southern continent's Balaam. And that wasn't all. In addition, there were many crucial factors at stake. Klein nodded thoughtfully and said, "For example, the conflict between the 6 deities?" Adam smiled warmly and said, "More than that." Without waiting for Klein to ask further, Adam added calmly, "You should have been to Bansi." Klein's heart stirred as he opened his mouth but didn't say a word. Adam continued, "In addition, after I perished, the invasion on reality by the outer deities clearly deepened. In the ancient palace above the fog, due to the lack of response to the prayer light representing Bernadette, it kept expanding and contracting, emitting rippling halos. This provoked the vortex formed by the transparent maggots. It frantically flailed its slippery tentacles and lashed towards that direction. After repeated misses, one of the tentacles touched the correct prayer light.